Hey there, in this video we're going to talk about backing up. So I'm Daniel Norton, photographer here in New York. I make videos like this one and about the arts. If you guys are interested in such things, go ahead and subscribe and we'll go for it. This is a 5-minute Friday, so I'm going to talk fast, I guess. Not really though. This is a pretty simple concept or subject, and I think it's one of those things that because it's so simple, we often forget. And it's the times that, you always hear the horror stories, right? And that's because somebody either didn't think it would happen to them or didn't back up that one day because, they've been lucky, whatever. And this is where we need to be on top of things. So I'm going to talk about different types of backups and why they might be necessary or needed. And of course, obviously, it really depends on what you're doing. I'm always talking with the idea towards somebody who's doing this more commercially. Obviously, if you're doing stuff for yourself, it sucks to lose things, or not be able to get the shot, but it's not the end of the world. But if you're doing something commercially, your reputation is on the line. I've said this before. People hire photographers because they get the job done, not necessarily because they're great artists, right? So with that in mind, let's talk about the most obvious thing that I think people don't think about, and that is a backup camera. So depending on your budget and the type of work you do and whatever, you may have 2 matching cameras, or you may use your old camera as a backup. But in either case, if you are being hired by somebody to do a job, you should absolutely never show up with one camera. Because no matter how reliable cameras are, no matter what's going on, there's always a chance that something could get goofed up. This is true of memory cards as well, and I know the whole single card slot controversy. I don't necessarily mean in that sense, but I do mean that if you're doing, let's say, a longer project, you want to make sure that you either have another memory card so you can swap out halfway through the day, or just another one just in case something goes wrong with the one you have. You fill it up, something happens. This is more just, you don't want to get to the point where in the early days when cards were really expensive, I remember being in these spots where you filled a card and you're just like, oh man, I want to shoot more images, but I don't know. Now you're on the back of the camera trying to delete things. This is not a situation you want to be in. Memory is cheap these days. Bring lots of memory cards. I mean, I bring way more memory cards than I would ever need on any one particular shoot, and I don't even shoot into cards. I shoot tethered 99% of the time. But it's just always a good thing to have. And while we're talking about that, it's a good idea that even if you decide not to shoot tethered, which I think you should, we've talked about this a bunch of times before, whenever possible, have a computer somewhere with you that when you have downtime, you can take cards out and you can back them up. I find this to be a better solution than just having 2 cards in the camera myself, because I like to know they're on my computer. I just feel more comfortable that way. I don't know. Anytime something's on a memory card, it makes me nervous. I know memory cards are, in fact, I once lost a memory card outside, it was in the winter, outside Adorama. I don't know how it happened. It fell out of my bag or whatever. And I was like, I lost a memory card. And some 6 months later, one of the cleaners was like, oh, I found this outside. And it was my memory card. And of course we had to look and the image was still on there. So it was a compact flash card. So they're pretty tough, but I always have this thought, that something could go wrong. So to me, I always back the cards up right away. I've talked about this when we did National Backup Day. I think, that must have been, I don't know if it went by again. And I talked about using the computer. I often use solid state drives. Are so cheap now. I have a couple of small ones I carry around with me. I put it on my laptop. I put it on the drive. I keep it on the card until I get it back to my main area. I'll leave one of the card, either the cards or the hard drive here at the studio when I go back to my home. That way things are in different places. Again, once you've made the images, they are worth so much more than the media itself. So keep that in mind. The kind of third thing that I want to talk about is just, and this one is one that people overlook, I think, a lot, and I think it's really important, is that cables. I was actually just thinking about this now because I was about to buy a new cable. And I always buy 2 of everything, sometimes 3. It really depends on what I'm doing. One of the reasons why I do that is because I like to create complete kits, meaning that if I have a kit of cameras, I'm going to want to have, let's say I have 2 kits of Nikon cameras. I'm going to want to have complete battery chargers, complete cords, any kind of extra cabling, tether cables, all that stuff in each of those kits. Even though I could easily just use one cable and move it back and forth, I have multiple sets of lights, Profoto lights. I have multiple remotes. Each kit has a remote in it so that if something were to happen and I only had the one kit and I forgot, I wouldn't be in trouble. I've learned this because back in the day, of course, when we didn't use remotes all the time, I used to keep all my pocket wizards in one kit, and more than once, an assistant forgot to throw it in the packing list. So we got on location and we had to use sync cords, which again, we made it work. But the idea that all my pocket wizards were in one place made me go, that's not a good idea. So I started keeping a transmitter with my cameras and then a remote with each light as opposed to all of them together. And in each one of those, I kept all the cables I'd need, including backup batteries. That's what I mean by backup. You want to make sure that if something goes wrong, maybe not something that's going to completely be the end of the world, maybe something you could fix easily later, you don't want to be in a position where you can't get the shots. So what else should we back up, guys? This is 5 minutes, so I can't go on forever. So what other things do you guys have backup? What extra things do you guys carry as backups when you're going on location so you know that you can always get the shot done? I'll see you next week.